Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick, I'm back. I do apologize for the interruption on the stream, but that was an emergency phone call that came in that I absolutely had to take. There shouldn't be any more interruptions. I want to drop back and sort of recap where we were in the initial stream. First, I'm thanking everybody who has chimed in for our request for urgent support for a young woman that I'm working with, a woman that's in her mid to late 30s with three kids that has been caught in the midst of violence, but pinned between the police department, which she's at odds with, and a gang which has shot up her house and has made threats verbally and on social media that they're going to kill her kids. Two of her kids have already been shot by the gang. I put all, as much of the details as I can in a video entitled, I can read it for you because I'm sitting up here. Black mother pinned between gang violence and police department. And we are relocating her to another state. We're setting her up and we're trying to get her set up for a minimum of a year to where she doesn't feel tossed around. She's been failed so many times in so many different ways, and it's hard for her to trust. She was brought to me by someone who trusts me to make sure it happens. It's not easy, and that is in and of itself frustrating. That we're just talking about helping one family, and it has been a challenge because there's so many things that aren't in place that should just be natural, that aren't in place, that you got to find this, and then convince these people that it's worth it. It's worth it. And everybody's, looking out, and everybody's got legitimate concerns. And there's so many different things that you can't even imagine to get one family located, what it takes. And then you realize she's just one of many. And it really, really gets to me. But if you want to learn more about what's going on, obviously I didn't share her name, I didn't share her city, and I didn't share the destination she's going to. And that's for her protection, because these people have proven that they mean that they're going to get her, definitely her kids. And so I don't want anything to happen to her, but it's the moment that we get her to safety. She's going to want to come on and thank the people who had something to do with rescuing her. And I'm going to be working with her ongoing for at least a year. So this is an ongoing commitment for me, and it's a big one because there's so much work underneath. Just getting her to safety is the first part. The people that I brought in, the first thing that we saw was we need to get her to safety. And so that's something that's the foremost. Before we can talk about therapy, before we can talk about dealing with trauma, before we can talk about preparing her to improve her value in the job market, before we talk about the schooling for the kids and the therapy for the kids, because we got a daughter that's gone through so much, she's traumatized and she's on meds, have suffered from depression and has attempted suicide. There's so much going on with this that is just overwhelming. And we need support. We need to be able to get her and her three kids there. We need to be able to make sure that they're housed for at least a year. And what that looks like, I'm working all the details out, but I'm telling you, and obviously none of this stuff is free. So we need your support. But we talked about that, and then we're here. So for those who want to give, you can either do it now, or if you need to know more, you can go watch the video. If you need to know even more on the video, I give you an email address to contact me directly, and I will supply you with links so you can literally see the story of this woman as it played out. She's filed lawsuits against school district, police department, and it done nothing but make more enemies. And it's gotten pretty bad for her and her city, and she needs to get somewhere safe, and we need to get her a new start. But anyway, if you want to show your love to help that particular situation in particular, put relocation in the comment field or next to your name or whatever when you donate, and we'll make sure that that is allocated specifically for that purpose. Those who just are still giving, you just give without an allocation. Or if you want to give to something specific like Black Men Lead or Restoring Ghettos Forgotten Daughters, definitely do that. On that note, now let's get back to why I am here in the first place. The reason I'm here in the first place is this, that Sometime I want to believe last week. Let's see when it happened. Uh, and like I said in the initial streaming, you got to be real careful when you're on these platforms. That's why it's so important for us to start supporting alt black media, the Odyssey Media Group, which is my independent media outlet, but and the Black Voice. But I'm a part of Alt Black Media, proudly a part of Alt Black Media, and we are building a platform to where we can provide all of the resources necessary to be a complete media outlet outside of using social media in any way, the social media big boys in any way, because when you don't subscribe to certain tenets or philosophies, or you speak your mind and you say the wrong thing, you get your channel snatched. And for a lot of us, a significant part of the way we support our families are based on the channels. I have multiple channels on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, numerous pages on Facebook, and you start getting this heat and they start popping. I got popped a couple of years ago, still haven't recovered from that one. We've got a long way to go before we get back there. That's why it's so important to have our own. But I'm going to talk about this because I'm hot. An Asian man shot a 6-year-old boy in a city in Michigan. I'm not going to even try to pronounce the city, but a city in Michigan. The little boy was riding with his friends past the guy's house. He got off his bike to play or whatever kids do. Something angered the Asian man. This video is being picked up by a Ring doorbell video from a neighbor across the street that recorded it. You know, Ring doorbells are triggered by movement. So anyway, he comes out, initially tries to hit the kid with a sledgehammer. Now, this is a grown man and a 6-year-old kid. And he's trying to hit the kid with a sledgehammer, but the kid runs away from him. And by the kid's recollection, he's in good spirits. He was like, he wasn't going to catch me. But the guy ran in the house, grabbed the gun, started shooting. And a bullet hit the kid in the arm, went through the arm. He was rushed to the hospital, treated. And within 3 days, the man was arrested, charged with intent to murder is the charge, is the way they have it listed in the article that I'm reading, intent to murder, which is in essence attempted murder. Now he was released 3 days later on a $10,000 cash bond. He's walking free after shooting a grown man, after shooting a 6-year-old boy. What kind of threat did the kid pose? He was simply retrieving a bike that he had laid in the yard. What kind of threat did he propose? What could he have possibly been doing, or what did you possibly think he was going to do that warranted you shooting him with a gun? Now, there are so many angles on this. Like I said, I am in no way going to be able to touch this the way I want to. And as it builds, the story builds, I'm probably going to be back to talk about it more. I think what probably has me most angry right now is the response of the little boy's father. I don't know what to do. I'm totally terrified because we don't know what he's capable of. See, in my situation with my family, nobody would be worried about what he's capable of. Anybody that knows me knows he's the one that should be worried. You shot my kid. What is it? And here's this thing. As of right now, at least for the time being, they're the most hands-off group or race of people in America. Can't say anything, can't do anything. And it didn't take long for that to happen. Here we are. We've been going through this for 400 years, 246 years. You know, I done did the rundown before. 246 years of chattel slavery, 12 years of Reconstruction, 15 to 20 years of Black Code, 70 years of Jim Crow segregation, another 50 going on 60 years of mass incarceration, miseducation, gentrification, and on and on. We're still being re-injured. We haven't recovered from the initial trauma. We've never been treated for the initial trauma, and we are being re-injured. That is called complex trauma. People talk about PTSD. PTSD is normally something that's experienced from one severe traumatic event in which a person becomes emotionally and mentally traumatized, meaning it has an imprint on their genetic makeup. The upregulation of genes is going to be highly impacted by that experience. This is not just a mental experience where they're emotionally upset or mentally upset. It has a physiological play out on it. Genetically, there is a play. Is known as epigenetics, and how you manage trauma, how you respond to trauma, how trauma impacts your life, and even to the point of upregulating disease genes can be related to. Now imagine you've gone through this for generation after generation for 246 years. You're now released. They tell you you're free, but they don't give you any treatment. They don't even give you any resources to deal with the fact that you come from generation after generation of forced servitude. They don't do that. They don't do that. Then you go off into 12 years of Reconstruction, something that they like to gloss over like that was a great time. Not for Black people. You know, for the South it was, not for Blacks. Gentrification was the reclaiming of the antebellum South as closely as they could get it to what it was before slavery. That's what Reconstruction was. Now, they like to talk about the high points of it, but the low points was that clandestine groups ran off and caused the shutdown of Union installations within the South that kind of kept order and protected Blacks to a certain extent. They ran them out because they kept bombing and shooting and burning them. So now, once they're gone, they start reinstituting restrictions. They bring in convict leasing. So now they made everything that Blacks do illegal. Vagrancy carries a felony conviction with it. Now you can be called a vagrant and be arrested and held in prison for 12 years and leased back out to the very plantations you were freed from. That's the first 12 years after 1865. And, you know, now keep in mind, we're still striving while this is happening, though. We learned how to read in one generation. We had been stopped from reading since slavery started. In one generation, we learned how to read. We were teaching ourselves to be literate, to learn, to be able to master and manage ourselves. We were creating thriving communities, but they were destroying them. Wilmington, North Carolina, Slocum, Texas, Rosewood, Florida, Tulsa, Oklahoma, certain places in St. Louis. These places were thriving, and they would come in, burn them, tear them down, call it a race riot. No, it was a massacre. You came in and you destroyed what we were building over and over and over again. That's just, then Jim Crow segregation came in and said, see, most people look at Jim Crow segregation and they sit up and they say, you know, that's when they wouldn't let us eat in their restaurants. That's when they wouldn't let us drink from their water fountains or use their restroom. No, it was so much deeper than that. That's the stuff everybody talks about. That's the stuff they teach you, because that's what they wanted you to focus on when you decide to fight, is that we can't eat in your restaurants, so we want to eat in your restaurants. We can't use your restrooms, we want to use your restrooms. That wasn't what they were discriminating and keeping you out of that mattered. It was redlining. They wouldn't give you funding for homes. They would devalue communities where Black families live, even if it was predominantly white. They were sitting up and setting up a system through which it was impossible for the collective as a whole to build wealth. That was what Jim Crow segregation was about. Yeah, that was some low end participants that were lynching and doing a bunch of other stuff and living on the edge of, you can't use our restroom and drink out our water fountain. But that's not where the major plays were being made in Jim Crow segregation. It was in banking. It was in home ownership. It was in property ownership. It was in education. And this is not something that's gone away. They've renamed it. I think Michelle Alexander has done a great job in her book, The New Jim Crow, of showing how it's transitioned into a new way. We still have the miseducation of African-American youth. I've written on it twice. Matter of fact, the second book is dropping in a couple of days. Academic Apartheid, which is the follow-up to the miseducation of Black youth in America. And we're going to go even deeper this time. We're going to talk about what's going on and how it's set up and why we're literally conditioned to fail, and why it's so important that we own our own identity, why it's so important that we build own our own, and establish who we are outside of the confines of the Eurocentric idea of what is. So much of how we view ourselves is based on a Eurocentric concept of what is, a Eurocentric concept of what's classy, a Eurocentric concept of what's professional, a Eurocentric concept of what's acceptable and whole and beautiful. All of these things. We've got our women bleaching themselves. We've got our women doing everything. At the same time, they're looking at us and seeing the true natural beauty of us and doing something to try to resemble how we look. But we are lost in the idea that they presented that this is the way we're supposed to look. They're not supposed to be us, and we're not supposed to be them. We are uniquely who we are because that's the way we originated. We are who we are because but we spend so much time trying to fit in. That's something else Jim Crow segregation did. It got us to focus on what we weren't allowed to do. And so we realized that maybe if we kind of assimilate into their culture by behaving like they behave, by wearing what they wear, by carrying ourselves and talking the way they talk, that we could fit in. Nothing wrong with speaking the King's English grammatically correct. I do it most of the time, not all the time. Matter of fact, I like getting around my people so I can just be me. But I thrive on communicating so people can understand what I'm saying. I know where I'm supposed to be. But the thing is, I have no qualms with my people who speak what quote unquote is called Ebonics. I know the origin of it. I know the fortitude and the spirit and the heart that it took to move through and what comes with it. I grew up in a household with a grandfather with a second grade education who was born in 1909. I have no problem with it. I understand what it is. I understand where it comes from. It's a second language. If you want to be honest, English isn't our first language. Broken English is for most of our immediate ancestors their first language. But you got to understand that it was not the first language. It was what they grew into. It was what was forced upon them. It wasn't a part of their unique identity. And that's another problem we have. We don't have a language. So we don't have the culture that other nationalities have and other ethnic groups and races have when they come here. They come here and they become a part of what's going on, but they don't leave their culture behind. We don't have our own. Because we come out of generations of servitude, we don't have a culture that we can relate to. It's been hidden. It's been shut down. It's been suppressed. It's been modified. And so we don't know who we are. So we don't know what it means to be a man in the midst of a moment like this. Yeah, I know I went a long way around to get back to it, but I needed to touch that. I need to give it some framework. You know how I get down. This is never going to be a 10-minute ordeal with me unless it's something just real specific. But look, there's no framework for manhood in most instances because we've spent so much time trying to be them. We don't have a sense of identity strong enough to say, I stand and I fight. We're too worried about what they're going to say. We're too worried about what they're going to do. Again, this is why we need our own media. This is why we need our own stores. This is why we need our own financial institutions. Why? Because there's never going to be a time that they're going to ever lift their foot voluntarily from our necks. Absolutely not. Now back to this situation. This kid should not have been exposed to the press. That's not covering a kid. That's not protecting a kid. That's actually a sign of weakness. That's saying I'm going to seek the sympathy of the masses by putting my kid out here and showing what someone did to him. Instead of sending a message to anyone that's watching and anyone that's aware of what's going on, that you touch mine, I touch you. That should have been the end of it. You touch mine, I touch you. No, Don't want to spend the rest of my life in prison, but I will gladly jump on the first bus there if you put your hands on my children. If you bother my wife, I am going to catch a case. It's that simple. Sorry, this is the wife speaking of. Look, that just threw me when I'm reading the story and I'm seeing the dad and he's, oh this, oh that, oh wow, oh, I don't. No, 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 no. Y'all better hide him, because that is absolutely unacceptable. We're not talking about an adult son being shot by another adult man, and that still needs to be dealt with. But we've got to send a message that our children are safe. How can our children feel safe to really truly thrive and be who they are when we are not willing to make the sacrifices necessary to provide them an environment in which they can thrive? What do you think happens as a little boy when you see your father cowering? You automatically look at what he's cowering from and see it as greater than him, and you see him as great, but you see this as greater than him. Now you fear it. You go from saying, when I get older, I'm gonna, to I can never. That's what happens when we don't have black men who are going to stand up and say, not on my watch. I'm not going to get off into all the other political bull crap that's going on behind this whole, we're so vulnerable. Everybody's picking us bull crap. And then you turn around and see all this stuff that's constantly been going on. This isn't nothing new. They've been mishandling us, but that's because we let them. We let them come set up in our communities. Treat us like we stealing and robbing and second-rate citizens. Beg them to give us service in their nail shops and in their beauty supply stores. It's no way you're going to shoot at my kid. Forget hitting them. There's no way you're going to shoot at my kid and not know I'm on this earth and ready to shake the ground to deal with you. It's absolutely no way that's going to happen. You're going to feel me, or you're going to have to kill me. It's that simple. What are we willing to die for? Dr. King said, and it runs so much deeper than violence. And I don't want to make this about violence, but I need to make this about the necessity to be willing to go the distance, because it ain't even the violence. One of my favorite quotes is, it's not the violence that sets a man apart, but the distance he is prepared to go. Well, sometimes you got to go to the end. You got to be willing to die to make your point. Dr. King said, a man that does not have something for which he is willing to die is not fit to live. What are you willing to die for? What will it take for you to sit up and say, this is the boiling point. This is the end. This is where it stops. This is where it stops. At what point are we going to get to the point where something is not acceptable enough that we take action? And I don't mean packing no darn gone sign. I'm talking about, why in the hell is George Zimmerman still walking around? How many gangs we got in Florida? How many gangs we got in Florida really to shoot one another over a block they don't own? And ain't nobody touch dude? He's just one. Here's this Asian cat. And this is the problem you have. And I was talking to somebody. It may have been Marion. It may have been Marion. I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about a situation in which you look up and you see stupid stuff in the media where non-blacks are becoming emboldened in confronting black males specifically. The same black males that police swear up and down they fear for their lives when in confrontation with them, even when they're unarmed. But you got a lot of them now who are coming up and getting knocked out at the worst. I mean, at the best, getting knocked out. Some of them getting handled. But why is it? It's because over and over again, they're seeing other non-blacks cause harm to blacks and nothing happened. There's no consequence for aggression towards blacks. We are begging for someone else to provide the protection that we should be providing for ourselves. I can talk about epigenetics. I've written about it. I've lectured on it. I've actually gone overseas and lectured on it as it pertains to its influence on cancer with the Epigenetics Council on Cancer. That's how deeply I've studied it and its impact on genetic performance. But I did it for trauma. But in doing it for trauma, I understood that it literally upregulates disease. The more traumatized you become, the more sick you become. But I could talk about that all day. I could talk about my knowledge of human behavior and trauma and how it's projecting itself, not just multi-generationally, not just epigenetic, but through social learning theory. I can talk about, but none of that matters a bit if we don't develop an idea of who we are as men that says you can't. I can be as on par with any intellectual. I'm not intimidated by one man on this planet when it comes to being able to sit down and have discussions on an educated level about a number of different topics. I know who I am, but I guarantee you, I have no problem coming down off of those steps and standing toe to toe with anybody that challenges or threatens my family and my loved ones. And anybody that knows me knows I'm not talking about a theory. They know the person who's done it. And that is something we got to do. I can remember being a young kid, teenager, and a young man, young adult, willing to die behind stupid stuff. So you mean to tell me as I mature and grow and see the power that I have as a man and the power that my people have, that's not something I'm willing to die for now? It's just bigger. And I'm more passionate about it. Do I want to leave this place? Absolutely not. Will I leave this place in a heartbeat if it means sending a message not on my watch? The reason they are emboldened, what gets me, somebody mentioned Tupac earlier. Tupac is in my top 5. Tupac is in my top 2. And it fluctuates. I'm not going to tell you who my number 1 is, not Biggie. Biggie's up there, though, but it's not Biggie. It's more of a sentimental thing. But anyway, look, somebody mentioned Pac. One of my favorite is in this is what's the name of the song? When We Ride on Our Enemies. It's a poet where he says, you were heartless on your hits. Then he says the N-word, love to scream peace after they start some shit. And that's what I see with them. They'll get out there, spit at you, sit up there and kick you. Things that we grew up, 2 things you will get the living crap beat out of you for as a kid, spitting and kicking. And they come with that bull crap, and 9 out of 10, somebody's like, no, you kicked me, you spit, you put your hands on me, and I'm gonna try to dismiss you. And something I teach my kids, something a friend shared with me a long time ago, and I teach my kids. Once you violate a person in any way, you lose all rights to determine how that person responds. When you violate a person's person, you don't get to say all I did was push you. If they get to whooping your butt, or if they get to cutting, once you violate a person's space, you have now told them you have no respect for you, and you don't know what their code is. And you don't get to dictate. You don't get to say, I just hit you once. You don't get to say any of that. But we need to start sending a message. When you violate, you will be touched. We need to send a message. When you violate, you will be touched. I cannot be more clear with this. We can talk about all the things that I love to talk about, all the things I've written in my 23 going on 24 books. We could talk about all the academic papers. We could talk about the lectures. You can look at the videos, thousands of videos over the years. You can look at all that. It means absolutely nothing if as a man, I can't stand up and protect my own. Doesn't mean anything. Can't hide behind those degrees. Can't hide behind videos. That's why I laugh at the little keyboard gangsters that try to throw slugs at me at times. Have no clue. I just have no desire to hurt my own anymore. But I trust me, if you try to bring harm to me or mine, I'm bringing the pain. Every last bit of ounce I got, and I'm not stopping. This isn't, I tapped you, you tapped me, you tapped me, I'm trying to knock you out your boots. And that's the message that we've got to send. We are off limits. Our women are off limits. Our children and elderly are off limits. Send them a message. Send them a clear message. You can't be a father whining about, I don't know what he's capable of. He ain't capable of nothing if he ain't breathing. How can we expect our women to respect us if we can't stand up with a backbone and square our shoulders and defend ourselves and defend our children? I don't claim to have been the best father in the world. I gave my kids what I had. I gave them all of me, whatever that was at the time. I'm still accessible to the oldest, which is in her second half of her 30s. I ain't gonna give her age. Daddy, stop giving my age. But she's over 35. We'll just say that. And I got a bunch of more grown. Every last one of them has the number and can contact me. There's only one rule my kids have to abide by. You don't have to kiss my butt, tell me I was an awesome dad. You can say whatever's on your mind as long as you say it respectful. That's the only rule. And I'll be there for you as long as I can in whatever way I can. And for the most part, me and my kids, we get along well because I will go to bat for them. And they know that. And anyone around them knows that. My thing is this. The one thing all of my kids can say is they felt safe around me because they knew what daddy would do if anybody tried to bring harm to them. It wasn't in question. It wasn't something they had to wonder about. It was understood. Whatever's happened to us with this movement towards mediocrity and metrosexuality and, the feminization of the black male image, the breaking of the black male, and all these other things that are happening that makes us cower when we're under attack. The time is up for that now. We can talk black group economics till we're black in the face. We can talk higher education till we're black in the face. We can talk a bunch of stuff on a bunch of different levels. We can sound smart. We can sound sharp. We can pat ourselves on the back about what we know. None of that means anything if you can't meet the primitive need of protecting. I teach every couple that comes to me. I teach the man when I'm counseling. Protection comes before provision. They love to talk about the man provides, the man provides. What good is the provision if he can't protect it? What good is the provision if he can't protect it? Yeah, come try to get my provision. Come try to get what I cover. And you will find out that there are consequences for your actions. We need this in the community too. My wife will tell you she gets nervous if I ride by and I see a brother and a sister going at it and he's a little aggressive, I'm stopping. And I know it's a couple of people that died there, but I'm stopping. My goal isn't to harm him because he's a brother, but my goal is to make sure that the sister is in a safe place. I don't know what he's capable of, but I know that if we don't have men that call out these young cats on what they're doing wrong, we're never going to get it right. We've got a lot of straightening up to do within, but darn sure can have somebody on the outside taking aim and teeing off at that level and getting away with it. We just want justice. Sometimes you got to create justice. Look, my thing is, if nobody bothers me, nobody has to worry about me. Somebody will sit up and say, is that inciting violence? No, it's not inciting violence. It's sending a simple message. If you don't want no problems, don't start none. That's the message. Not out seeking nobody. Don't have no anger or hate for nobody that don't have no anger or hate for me. But if you come at me, don't think I'm going to bow down and cower. That's the message. Don't like that message. I don't know what to tell you. But we are going to have to do a better job of creating an environment of safety for our women, our elderly, and our children. On that note, I'm gonna get out of here. Like I said, don't forget, if you haven't supported the work we're doing, definitely, if you want to support specifically the relocation of this young woman I'm working with, hopefully within a week, I'll be able to introduce you to her. She has absolutely no problem being on social media. I had to get her off of social media because it wasn't safe, but she'll definitely want to talk. And you can kind of get an idea of what we've been going through. But her story is so unbelievable. It's been going on for like 2 years, just one thing after another. And we kind of throw our people away too. And that's something that I'm not willing to do. I'm not willing to throw our people away. And like I said, the last thing I want to do is have somebody bring somebody to me and I say, no, I can't do it. And then I hear that they were harmed or their children were harmed. And so I'm gonna ask you to show your love, show your support. The link to go watch that video if you need to know a little bit more about it is there. One way or another, if you want to help specifically with that particular project, when you donate, just put relocation and we'll know what you mean. On that note, I'm getting off of here. You guys have an unbelievable day.